What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sailboat's Restorations. Today I'll be working with this pair of LeBron 7s, which I got in a beater box a long time ago and never got around to re-gluing. Let's get down to it. Obviously, I've been going pretty crazy with the restoration work recently, so I decided that I might as well get around to this project. Let's take a closer look so you know exactly what I'll be working with. You can see that there is just a complete separation happening here. The uppers are completely separated from the midsoles, albeit in very good condition still. The midsoles are separated completely from the uppers, and the outsoles are separated completely from the midsoles. All three of these surfaces are going to need to be prepped up appropriately for a reglue. We're going to have to Dremel all the old glue off the uppers. We'll have to use some acetone and cotton balls to clean it off the midsoles and the outsoles as well. So the first part of this project is just prep work. We're going to have to remove the glue from the outsoles, the midsoles, and the uppers. Shouldn't necessarily be too hard, but it is time consuming. So I'm gonna have to give these things a full 100% reglue. Let's go ahead and start off with the preparation process of removing all the old excess glue. I'm ready to now start with the preparation process on the uppers for these LeBron 7 breads. I got my Dremel, got my mask and my glasses because of course safety is key, and I'm gonna go ahead and get off all the old glue as best as I can.
For uppers of this style, I typically like to use my Dremel to remove the old excess glue as much as possible. I switch between several different bits, primarily using a sanding bit to help to get all the old excess glue off. However, once I get into tighter areas, I use a precision bit to help to keep my lines nice and clean.
I've been able to do a ton of prep work on these LeBron 7 breads so far, but I still have a lot of excess glue that I need to remove. So now I'm gonna break out the acetone and cotton balls to get all the remaining glue off of this pair.
For the midsoles and the outsoles, acetone and cotton balls worked just fine for this portion of the project. Once I moved my way to the uppers, I actually utilized a combination of both cotton balls and Q-tips, so then that way I could be a little bit more precise with my application of where the acetone was going, so I didn't get any on the patent leather and ruin the uppers of these kicks.
At this point in time, I've stripped all of the excess glue, which actually turned out to be a little bit easier than expected due to the age of these kicks. Now, we gotta get these shoes put back together and get all of the components glued in place. However, I am noticing that there's a little bit of yellowing going on with the soles. What I'm gonna do first is ice up these outsoles. Let's get some sole sauce on there, and then we'll get them out in the sun so that they can sit for a couple of hours.
In order to de-yellow these outsoles, I utilized Salon Care 40 volume cream. I applied a very thin layer to all of the clear sections of the outsole, and then I would wrap the outsoles up in plastic wrap before taking them outside and allowing them to sit in the UV rays of the sun for several hours. While I was waiting for my outsoles to ice, I decided that I was going to reinstall the air units to the heels of the midsoles. I applied just one thin layer of my Barge Super Stick to both the midsoles and the air units, knowing that I didn't need an incredibly heavy amount of glue to get these things to stick into place.
It's time for me to glue the air units back into the heels of these LeBrons. I can't put too much heat on these air units, otherwise I will pop them. Let's go ahead and we'll get the air units in.
When it comes to reheating the glue on the air units, you definitely have to be a bit more careful because over application of heat can actually cause the air units to pop and no longer be functional. I apply just enough heat so that I can feel the glue becoming a bit more tacky, so then that way when I place my surfaces together, I know that they'll create a strong bond.
Alright, first air unit is in, and it's looking good. Doesn't look too bad, honestly, all things considered.
With the second air unit, I unfortunately inserted it with malalignment, so I tried to pull it out, but in doing so, I began to damage the midsole of the shoe.
Alright, I guess I'm not pulling that out. It was a little bit off-centered and I wanted to line it up a little bit better, but then I started to tear the midsole there, and shit. So that just happened right there. It's a huge bummer.
absolutely huge bummer. Damn. Alright, project is not lost. Just gonna have to seal that back up together. I'll have to put some glue in there. That is a massive bummer right there. After several hours of letting the outsoles sit in the sun to ice, I took them out and got them cleaned off so they could get prepped for the reglue. So as you can see, these things look a little bit better than where they first started off. You'll probably have to see it in the before and after shot to get a really good idea of how much these things de-yellowed. They definitely look a lot clearer than where we first started, even if you can't tell from these shots right here. After getting the outsoles cleaned off, it was time to get them glued to the midsoles. I applied layers of barge superstick cement to both the midsoles and the outsoles, waited about 30 minutes, and then applied one additional thin layer of glue to try and make sure that all of my surfaces were appropriately covered. I let my glue cure for 2 hours. Allowing the glue to cure for 2 hours means that when you place the surfaces on top of one another, they will not immediately bond to each other. Once I get my alignment appropriate, I apply mild heat to reactivate the glue at about 110 degrees, and then I apply substantial pressure to encourage a stronger bond between the surfaces. After bonding the midsole to the outsole, I like to install the front air units. I do this so that I avoid excess heat during the attachment of the midsole and the outsole. Following my installation of the air units, it's time to get the uppers re-glued to the midsoles. I apply glue in nearly the same fashion that I did for both the outsoles and the midsoles during that gluing process, except I also use a very fine brush to help to get into some more of the tight spots on the uppers to make sure that my lines are nice and precise. For gluing the toe cap of this specific pair, I also added a little bit of white paint to keep up with the aesthetic from the original glue job. You only need a very minimal amount of white paint at the toe cap to allow for this effect. After letting my glue sit for about 2 hours, I align my uppers to my midsoles and apply mild heat up to about 110 degrees to reactivate the glue and create a bond between the surfaces. I apply a substantial amount of pressure to help with the bond and promote a better connection between the surfaces.
Alright, now that I have finished re-gluing this pair of Lebron 7s, it's time to take a closer look and see what the finished product looks like. So taking a closer look at the right shoe to begin with, you'll see that the bond is very clean between both the midsole and the upper, and the midsole and the outsole. I'm really happy with how clean this bond was because I actually learned a new reheating technique which works a lot better for me. It's not only quicker, but it actually makes a more solid, cleaner bond. Now, one thing I will mention about the right shoe is there is a little bit of a malalignment between the outsole, and you can see that ever so slightly right here at the heel where these lines just don't match up 100%. And that's completely on me. It's not going to affect the wearability, but it is just a little bit of an aesthetic blemish. Unfortunately, I got a little bit of glue on the upper right here, and that kind of peeled off some of the patent leather. Overall, not a huge mistake, something I just got to be careful of in the future. The left shoe, however, man, this thing is clean front to back. The only thing that I really screwed up on is when I tried to pull out that air unit, I made a little bit of a tear in the midsole, which I was able to patch up quite nicely. Overall, these shoes are looking super clean and are one of the cleanest pairs I've ever re-glued before. I was able to de-yellow the soles. They don't look 100% perfect, but they're definitely a bit more icy than they were when I first started working on this project. Overall, these things are definitely looking a lot better, and they're holding up nicely to a stress test, so I know that they're going to be perfect for wear in the future. One thing that I will mention is that when I was re-gluing the toe cap, I did mix in a little bit of white paint with my glue to try and preserve the original aesthetic of the shoe, and that's exactly how it was glued to begin with. I think that the look is actually pretty good, and that white glue kind of meshes in with the rest of the toe cap and midsole to make it a more continuous line. So obviously this pair of Lebron 7s is in a lot better condition than when we first started, and there is a nice strong bond between the outsole and the midsole and the upper. These things are not going to fall apart and are in totally wearable condition. Overall, I am insanely happy with how this project turned out. Hopefully with watching this, you guys have a little bit of a better idea of how I go about re-gluing a pair of kicks. If you guys have additional suggestions for my restoration series, please let me know in the comments below, so then that way I can try to keep up with what you guys want to see on this channel. If you guys did enjoy what you saw today, please take the 10 extra seconds to drop a quick like and subscribe to that channel. It only takes 2 clicks with your pointer finger there, and doing so really supports the channel in a massive way. If you guys are interested in the inventory that I have for sale or any of the projects that I've had going on recently, make sure to check out the website at www.sailboatsupplies.xyz. You can also stay up to date on a day-to-day basis by following me on social media at Sailboat Supplies. And as per usual, thank you to all of you that stuck around until the cold, bitter end of this video. You guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.